All right, my name is Rich Schmidt, here with Erica Miller at Stoller today. It's April 6th, 2021. Erica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
This first question for you, why wine or why grapes?
That is kind of a roundabout answer. I grew up in farming, so farming is kind of, my life. Wine had never been a big part of my life, and but agriculture was extremely interesting to me. And so I grew up in, wheat fields, I moved to cherry orchards, and, was really big in just surrounded by agriculture. And when I got into college, I was a math major, I was a business major, I changed my mind like 50,000 times, and kind of when I grew up a little bit, I realized that I really liked agriculture, and I was, I want to go back into that. And so I kind of stumbled upon grapevines through OSU and just kind of fell in love with it and just hit the ground running. Knew nothing about grapevines, knew nothing about that particular type of agriculture or anything there. So I kind of went blindly into it, and turned out pretty great. So yeah, it was for the best, and it was kind of like, it felt like, leaping into, the unknown, but I just kept on enjoying it and just kept on going with it.
So what was when you started thinking about agriculture, why grapevines and why not something else?
Grapevines are very scientific. So I am definitely a science brain through and through, really mathematical, very into research and just, figuring things out on that end. So grapevines are so cutting edge and, just, it's so scientific. Every piece of it is, down to the wine is just so full of, learning and science, and it's ever changing. So it's definitely one of those crops that really keeps you on your toes every single year and, just throughout your life. Like one thing that I know, which is, I'm sure many people have said this, is that I know nothing, like I learn something new every single day from, someone in the industry or just the grapevines in general. So, yeah.
So when you're at Oregon State, obviously, and you go down that path, tell me about kind of the first steps into it. What were your sort of first work or first impressions or first research that you were doing in that field?
Well, my first class was just the general beer, wine, and spirits class, and I was like, what? This is so crazy. You can study about wine. That's insane. And so I kind of jumped into that. And then it was, very general horticulture, which I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. I got this, and then it came into the vineyard management classes. You go through, a couple of those classes, and I met Patty Skinkis through there, and just really was like, wow, this place, this lab, the Woodhall Vineyard, everything is just really, really interesting. And so I kind of connected with Patty, and through that I found the research lab, and I volunteered in there for a little bit and applied for my internship there. And that's kind of where it all started. I was there for 2 years, and just working with Patty and her grad students and her PhD students, and just studying grapevines, collecting the craziest data. And that is actually was my first knowledge of Stoller, was because the first project that I helped in their research was at Stoller Vineyard. So it was kind of a full circle. Now it's a full circle. I had no idea back then that I would be here, for this long and just like enjoying it. But yeah, I just remember going down there, block 15, collecting data, staring up at the tasting room and just being like, whoa, this place is crazy. Like, this is really cool, And so Yeah, for an entire 2 summers, I was actually out at Stoller almost every single day, just collecting data, and had no idea where my future was going. But yeah, so.
Tell me about that data. I'm curious. You mentioned from the beginning kind of science and math as sort of the appealing parts to you. What about what was the data you were gathering, and did you have any kind of idea at the time of why you were gathering and what the purpose was?
Well, that was one of my favorite things about working there, is they were so inclusive and just so welcoming of teaching and letting you know why we're doing these things. Anything down to like pressure bomb readings for water stress. We did a lot of berry collections. So one of the projects that I worked a lot on was the berry size increase. So it was basically determining when lag phase happened for Pinot Noir, and so we would go out there and we would collect clusters once a week, twice a week, depending on what time of season it was, and we would count every berry on every one of the clusters and weigh some, measure the size of them, and then do like Brix PHTA on them and get all of that information. And at the end, it's amazing because you compile all of that together, and it, some years it creates this really nice curve where you can really see where that lag phase happened that year. So yeah, really full circle stuff.
Mm-hmm. At this point, were you getting interested in wine, the beverage, at all?
Yeah, I was actually. After I worked, I think it was during. I could not. It was hard for me to enter the industry. I didn't have any experience whatsoever. So because I just kind of, went into it, I had a tough time like getting into the industry at first because I just honestly didn't know anything or anyone. So I started applying for jobs in tasting rooms, and I actually got a job. My old boss, Catherine, she took a gamble on me because I came in there and was like, I have no idea. I know nothing about wine, but I swear I will learn. I had never poured a glass of, alcohol for anyone at that point, and so I was like, just give me a chance. I swear I'll be okay. And so I got a job at Alzheimer's, and I worked there for off and on. I think it was around 5 years, because I was even working in the industry in the vineyards at a certain point, and they were like, you want to come on the weekend and work with us? And I was like, yeah, this is really fun, And so that was really where I first even learned, how to taste wine and how, the process of it, and being able to, bring notes out of it and really learn. So I went from zero knowledge. They taught me so much. I was very, nice there. There was a lot of educational, things that I could do. I got to talk to the winemakers, David, and just everyone. It really molded, basically my knowledge of wine today, other than, now I learn from our current winemakers and try to get knowledge from them every way I can. But yeah, that was my first education in actual wine. Minus the, I grew up in Dufur, so we did the old Boone's Farm, in the, when you're younger, that was the extent of my wine knowledge. So.
What did you think about that part of the industry, about the kind of the finished product part of the industry and the hospitality part of the industry?
I thought it was really great. So it was one of the funnest jobs I have ever had, was working in there, being able to talk to customers. And it's really fun because I also worked in other retail. So I worked at Bi-Mart at their sporting goods counter for a long time while I was going through college. And it's just such a different atmosphere. People are coming into wineries just ready to learn, have fun, and the environment is just so positive that every day I would come there and be like, this is work, this is weird. I'm just literally having conversations with these people and pouring them wine and just having a great time. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And so every day, and it was just a fun commute, just chatting and, very lighthearted atmosphere, and just a job that I just never have even expected to ever have in my life. Mm-hmm. So.
Tell me about how long did it take you to feel comfortable talking about wine with people and teaching them about wine, and how long did it take you to kind of learn enough to feel comfortable as a teacher?
It took me a little while, for sure. I was working in the tasting room while I was going through school, so inevitably I was kind of putting these connections together and figuring out how I could communicate with customers and give them knowledge that I literally probably learned last week and was like, oh yeah, this, and like, basically like, almost a fake it till you make it situation where I'm like, I just learned this, but I'm totally going to tell you that I, talk to you in the way that I've known this for quite some time, and I'm just going to, give you this information. And so for a while, it was very, very fast-paced. Like everything I was learning, it was kind of like regurgitation, like just ready to go. And just that same week, telling people about what I had learned. But it kind of solidified things for me, and I was able to really not only comprehend, but just keep that knowledge because I was using it in multiple facets. So I'm learning about grapevines, and I'm teaching these, or informing these customers about what I had just learned, and it really goes, it just solidifies in your brain that way. You kind of just get to learn it in two different ways,
So at what point did you kind of think that the wine industry was a place you might want to stay, a career you might want to pursue?
I feel like it was just from the very beginning. I don't know. It was something that just like clicked in me, and I had already worked in agriculture, so I knew that I loved, working outside, working with plants, doing all of that. But it was weird because I found out about the degree, and I literally just was like, this is what I'm gonna do. Even my advisor was like, well, do you wanna just take a couple of classes first? And I was like, nope, I just wanna do it. And I just, for some reason, was just like, no, I think this is it. Like I had gone through so many, I actually was like, I think it was my third degree change. Like I had no idea what I was doing. And I just, all of a sudden I was like, no, I think this is it. And I went for it, and it turned out to be right, I guess. Yeah.
You mentioned working with Patty Skinkis earlier. I'm curious about sort of takeaways you had from working with her, or lessons along the way that you learned from her.
Yeah, I learned so much from her, and I continually learn from her. I call her all the time. Like I will call her, there's random times where I'm like, what is there was one time that I couldn't remember. I'm looking under a microscope, looking at these mites, and I was like, how do you tell the difference between like a rust mite and another type of mite? And she literally drew me a picture on a notepad and took a picture of it and texted it to me. I was like, oh yeah, okay, I remember now. And it's like that kind of thing. She's just so open, and just it does not matter what question you ask, she's going to and if she doesn't know, she will direct you to whoever she thinks would know that answer. And so she's been definitely a huge mentor of mine ever since I was in college. I definitely value her as a mentor and just an educator for life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you've been at Stoller for a project, and you've been working at Alzheimer. What brings you back to Stoller? What's the path from Alzheimer to Stoller, and what brought you here? Yeah, well, I had a year in between where I worked for Sterling Wine Grapes, and I got that was actually my first job in the vineyard industry side of things. And so I worked with him for a year, and it was great. I drove a lot of tractor. Every facet of, the vineyards, I was able to actually like gain a skill in that. So it was like one of the fastest but most educational years for me in the beginning of my career. And at the end of, before the next season, a job posting came up for Stoller, and I just was like, oh, whoa, like I should apply there. Like, there was no, I was content where I was, but I just was like,
I used to go in that vineyard. I should totally apply and like see. And so I did, and I got the job as a vet tech. And then, you know, things just started taking off from there. And we grew and grew and grew, and I grew with the company and, you know, just kind of filled holes wherever I could, tried to, you know, help out wherever I could. Stoller gave me the opportunity to actually grow my career at one location, which was really great.
So I have more questions about Stoller. I'm going to come back to those in a second, but I'm curious about your year working with Sterling. All of a sudden you're working in, I assume, a lot of different vineyards, a lot of different sites.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about learning kind of the differences between sites and soils and AVAs and all of that.
Yeah, it was just a crash course in just multiple vineyards, multiple areas, and learning, you know, old vineyards, young vineyards, you know, vineyards with certain issues, vineyards that were ultra premium, you know, vineyards that were high production, just every single facet. I was able to be like, you know, okay, this is what this looks like, you know, small vineyards, large vineyards. And I had the opportunity of actually going to most of those because I was, you know, doing crop estimates and, you know, taking nutrient samples and soil samples and, you know, learning through, you know, that and kind of using the skills that I had learned from Patty and from OSU and, you know, actually putting those to practice for the first time. And it was definitely an eye-opener for me to see, you know, so many different ways that people are growing grapes and, you know, their different styles and just the different layouts, the spacing, just everything is just so, you know, there's such a variety of vineyards out there.
Did you learn about, did you start to feel like you could sort of judge a vineyard as you walked in or grade it in your head, like what it needed or what you would do to make it better?
I did start to learn that. Yeah, absolutely. So it's so funny because the way I kind of describe it is like when you first start, you're looking at them like this. And then as you get, you know, a year goes by or, you know, even 6 months go by and then it kind of opens a little bit and then it opens more and more and more. And so by the end, I'm like, oh, I never would have ever seen that part. You know, now I can go into a vineyard and be like, this, you know, and in the beginning, I looked at it like, cool, this is a vineyard, you know, and now I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Never can be satisfied with what you see.
Yeah, exactly. You can always find anything there. Yep.
I'm also curious about sort of different types of, you mentioned all the different kinds of farming practices and farm styles. Did you start to kind of develop an idea in your head of sort of your favorite way to farm or your favorite way to grow grapes?
Yeah, I think I personally am kind of a blend of many different styles. So I love, you know, I think I personally strive for sustainability and that kind of aspect, although I also am use all the tools on your tool belt. You know, I really think that you can manage a vineyard with low not input, but, you know, low altercations to the land and to, you know, what you're doing and making the right choices. And I've only learned what those right choices are like very recently, you know, like, cause you know, you have everything that you think is right. And then you kind of learn, you know, you're like, oh, this will save, you know, this is, you know, going to help the beneficials in the vineyard, and I can do this, and it's not going to be a huge nuisance at all for us to continue to manage, but I can do these kind of things on the side and, you know, plant wildflowers in this corner where it can just flourish and, you know, that kind of stuff that I've really started to hone in on now that I'm kind of getting further and further into my career.
So you mentioned coming to Stoller and starting kind of as a tech and growing along with the company. Tell me about learning this place. Obviously you had been here before, you had done some data. Tell me about learning your new site and honing in on it.
Oh yeah, when I first drove up into Stoller, because I only had the one block that we went in, and then there was a Chardonnay block on the other side of the site, which, to be honest, the first time I drove in, like on my first day of work, I couldn't have taken you to that block if I, tried. I had no idea where it actually was really, because, going in there, it was just this, whoa, big area. And I remember taking a drive around the vineyard and being able to just go on the whole property. And we drove up and over to, we call them the 60s. We call it the 60s. And it's just this little, like side note that you don't even know is there. And, unless you're kind of really intimate with the vineyard, and you can go up over there. And it's one of my favorite spots now to go to. And just, I love that area of the vineyard. And it's just one of those spots that if I did not work at Stoller, I would have never known it even existed. You just never see it. So it was really cool to kind of become intimate with the vineyard. And now, I can tell you which vines would have bud break before any other vines. I can go to the specific row now that I will have bud break first. And it's just working in this one, this location for 5 years. It's been, so great to just really I just get to know every nook and cranny of this property. Just every year you learn something different, and you kind of really it's like the vines. You're very intimate with the vines.
You mentioned bud break. That should be happening right around now.
Yeah, yesterday I found the first buds. So yeah,
excellent timing.
Yeah, very good timing. Yeah, we went in Friday. I was looking, like crazy, because I was like, I know it's gonna happen, and I was like, it's gonna be the weekend, and it's Easter weekend, and so I knew. I came back on Monday, and everyone was like, is it here? And I was like, I think so. I gotta go find it. Yeah. It's like, I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you. So.
Like Vineyard Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. It's definitely a hunt. Yeah. Yep. I have an advantage though. I kind of cheat because I already know where it should be. So.
You talked about, tell me about your kind of initial role. What was your initial role when you were hired here, and how has it changed? Take us through kind of the progression of your work here.
Yeah, I started as a vit tech, and so basically it was very similar to what I was doing with Sterling, but I minimal tractor driving. I didn't really drive tractor that much at Stoller. A lot of crop estimates, spray programs, nutrient samples, all of that kind of good stuff. Irrigation. I actually helped put in one of the blocks in front of the tasting room, the irrigation in there, and it was great because I got to learn the system, and it's a very large, intricate system that is very hard to run. So I'm very blessed that I got to learn that at my year one. And so, a lot of just helping, looking at, what is the crew doing? Are they doing well? Are we doing things at the right time and things like that? So for a year, I was at that role, and then I moved up to assistant vineyard manager, and kind of worked. I think I was assistant vineyard manager for a year and a half. It's all blurs together, but and then I moved into that role, and that was more manage the crews, do the spray program, and kind of do everything that I was doing before, but also add that aspect of management, like telling, when we should do things, being able to make decisions on, what I think will benefit the vines, which was really cool. Stoller, one thing about Stoller that I love is I've always had the opportunity to really do what I think is right for the vines, and they all just, trusted me and was like, yeah, great, yep, okay, you want to do that, you go ahead and you do that. And it was, and you learn along the way, but it was such a blessing just to be able to have these thoughts, have these ideas, and be able to implement those ideas through, Stoller, and just be able to research little things by myself and, create that learning system just at Stoller. And it's something that, I've been here for quite a while, but I don't know that not everyone has the opportunity. And I just am so thankful that I kind of fell into this role that gave me the opportunity to just advance my learning and, just have the freedom to really expand my knowledge and, better the vineyard at the same time.
So the assistant manager or assistant vineyard manager role, you mentioned both the kind of the management aspect of things, but and also the decision-making aspect of things, the timing. So take me through that process of feeling comfortable and confident making those kinds of decisions for vineyards like this.
Yeah, year one was really nerve-wracking for sure. I had support systems. I had Jason with me, and he was great at kind of like, okay, what do you want to do? Okay, yeah, that's great, do it. Or, and I always had the opportunity to be like, hey, what should I do this? Like, is this okay? And so, and then as the years went by, I got more and more confident, and it became just kind of routine where, things just kind of were fluid. The first year was definitely, I was so nervous all the time and just trying to figure out, it's, what you should do, but it's the act of actually pulling that trigger is so scary. It's like, I was always like, am I sure? Should I be doing this? Like, what is going on? And then as you go through, you gain that confidence, and you're like, okay, yeah, I know, yep, I'm good. I know what I'm doing. I can do this. And then you start to kind of expand more and more and more, and you're able to kind of look at, whole farm, aspects of things, and be able to add other things other than just like, okay, this block right here, you're kind of like, I can see all of these blocks at the same time, and I know what all of them need at the same time. So definitely a learned skill for sure.
Take us through kind of your a typical day or a week for you, or if it's easier, what does the kind of year cycle look like for you? What does your job do? How does your job change during the year?
I feel like at Stoller, there's definitely a little bit of downtime during the winter. We get to go on our little vacations and do that. But we're always still going, especially the management team. We're always, thinking of what's next. A lot of my winter is compiling all the data that I collected and analyzing that. And, during the season, it's kind of the growing season. It's kind of go, do this, collect this, making sure that everything is all of the information is compiled together. And then the winter is when I organize and kind of, make sense of what that year entailed, I just recently was looking at our pruning weights, and was, I was going through all of those, and, it's like, we just finished pruning now, and I was like, oh yeah, 2020, those were heavier cane weights than 2019, and it's like you get to that data, but yeah, it's a lot of time management for all of us. And, I'm constantly thinking about how I can collect different data, how I can learn different things from our specific vineyards, because every vineyard is different. So, Stoller is very different than any other vineyard that we manage, and just kind of learning what best practices for that specific spot, because it's definitely not all the same, and they all have their different needs. And so I like to think that my job now is kind of to figure out what those needs are for each and every vineyard block, and to kind of give that block the tools and the love that it needs to get in order to make really premium wine. Yeah.
Is there something you've accomplished at Stoller so far that you're particularly proud of?
Learning, I don't know. No, I have completed a couple of really cool research projects. I have one, it's not done yet, we're in the last year, but it's with Patty. I was able to kind of bring Patty into it, and it's fully, Stoller is, leading that research project, and it's on trunk disease, which is something that all of us are, really focused on and trying to, figure out how to extend the longevity of our vineyards. And so it's kind of a twist on, not eradicating, but a lot of these older vineyards already have, trunk disease. So how do we keep these premium blocks going, and how do we get the best life out of them and add 10, 15 years to their lifespan, even though they have something that we didn't even know was a thing until a couple of years ago. So
have you had any interesting conclusions so far? Do you feel like you're making progress on that problem?
Yeah, I think we are, absolutely. Some of the treatments that we've done, we had a Chardonnay block. It's old vine. It's goes into one of the premium, wines that we have, and it was very, very low yield. So it was still really premium, but we wanted to kind of pump it up, keep it going, and I really think that we have found some really nice results. And if you look at the block, even the crew guys, when I have them go into that, it's just 16 rows. It's very small. But I'll have the crew guys go in there and help me like tie down the vines or do something. And they're like, oh, this is looking good. It's like it had, this like really low vigor, and now it really is, it's a totally different block. We're in year 3. So we've had some really good results with what we were doing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you've had experience now at a variety of different vineyard sites, a variety of different vineyard types. I'm curious, now that you've been here long enough, describe for me what Stoller's Terroir is to you. How and what's the role you play in Stoller's Terroir?
Terroir just means so many different things to me, but Stoller's Terroir, like as a company and as a vineyard, I think it's so sustainable. We're very cutting edge. We look at the microclimate and we use what that microclimate gives us, and it's not a fight against the vines. It's a collaboration with the vines in order to grow the best grapes. So I think we look at each block has its own terroir, like every little nook and cranny of the vineyard is very different in my eyes. And so we kind of work with that and try to manage those grapes in many different ways. Everything we create, we let the vineyard show itself, and we utilize that to our advantage. So, and it helps us to maintain the vines in a very sustainable way, but also grow the best grapes with, less input and more just, we're listening to the vines in a sense.
So you're in a role in the industry that has not traditionally been filled by women. It's obviously changing now. I'm curious to you, do you feel that at all? Do you notice that at all in your work or in your work in the industry? And what does it mean to you to be a woman in doing your work?
Yeah, I definitely notice. I'm actually the only woman in my actual department. So, but I like it. I grew up in agriculture. I know what it's about. It is dominated, by male, I have so many male counterparts, and I kind of embrace it. I've always been kind of against the grain a little bit in that aspect of my life. You know, I'm like, I don't care that I'm a woman. I want to do this and I like it. So therefore I'm just going to go full force and go into it. And it's never really been an issue for me, but, I think it's also, I do have very strong ladies around me. You know, I always have had a really great support system, and that has helped me, I think, just be confident, be strong, you know, and I've been very accepted in the industry, I think, you know, and from my perspective, I don't feel like I'm not regarded or anything just because I'm a woman. I think that, you know, everyone listens. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, it's just kind of, if you have the knowledge to put forth and you're confident in yourself, people will listen and people will respect you and respect you for who you are, not necessarily that I'm the blonde lady in the vineyard, you know?
So in your experience, what would you say is the most important part of grape growing?
Oh man, everything. The most important part. I don't know. That's such a tough question, because I think one of the most important parts of grape growing is, I would just say, like, listening to the grapes, you know, like knowing what your vineyard is and not trying to make it into something else, right? Using what the vineyard's giving you, because you definitely, you know, the vineyard will show itself to what it wants to be used for, and what it, you know, certain blocks are going to show themselves in different ways. And I think the most important part about grape growing is to see that and to, you know, utilize those blocks where they should be utilized, and use that fruit and grow those grapevines the way that they should, for, you know, what they should be grown for.
So let's talk about 2020 a little bit. Obviously a bit of an interesting year for all of us. I'm going to start with the pandemic and sort of its effects on you and your work, and on Stoller kind of in general. Tell us how it affected your work last year, and kind of, are there changes you've made that you see sticking around, and changes you've seen that we're coming out of now?
Yeah, in the vineyard it was really intense because, you know, the grapevines don't stop growing. And so we had to extremely quickly figure out how to continue working, but be safe while we're doing it. And, you know, it was so crazy. Just you know, like even April, when it, you know, got really crazy and the grapevines are, you know, bud break is happening and we're doing all of this stuff, and just going to work every day and just being like, okay, yeah, this is really weird. But it was almost a ghost town, you know, like the vineyard was going, and, you know, luckily in the vineyard we have rows that are certain spaces apart. So that was really great, because we were able to quickly implement ways to keep everyone kind of separated, you know, wear your mask, do all this stuff. And we were kind of lucky in the sense that we have, you know, such a good support system around us that we were able to, you know, be really proactive with the whole situation. And it was something that I will never forget. I will never forget 2020. Like, it was one of the craziest vintages I've ever went through. I think that we all grew from it. I think it's something that, you know, it builds character in a way. And our team is closer because of it, you know? Like, I feel like we really, really confided in each other and really worked together to try and conquer and to grow grapes. And it was something to, you know, keep us focused, but also, you know, we had our family, you know, our team together to, you know, really work through it together. So it was definitely really intense, but I think everyone persevered. Like, it was amazing to see, you know, not just Stoller alone, but just the entire industry just work together and, collaborate together, figure it out together. It was like one big team just trying to make sure that we were all, safe, doing the right thing, being, just getting the job done, but also, really thinking about all of our employees and their families. And, there was just so many different facets to it.
And then, of course, after all that, then we have Harvest of 2020. So tell me about that from your perspective and your experience.
Yeah, that was crazy. I grew up in Eastern Oregon, so I was, wildflowers is definitely a thing, and my family grew up, outside of town, and we've had quite a few wildflowers over there over the years, and so it wasn't something that I wasn't used to in that aspect, but I was not ready, for it to come over here. I was like, oh yeah, it's a thing, you guys, it's totally fine. But then I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is intense. Like, this is the craziest. But we had already gone through the COVID thing. And so we were like, well, keep it going. We got this. We're going to work together. We got to get these, we're going to harvest these grapes. We're going to make it through this season, And so it was just another one of those, like, well, I don't know what else is going to happen, but we're tested every single day in this vintage. And I feel like everyone was just like, yep, we got this, you guys. We've gone through worse. It's totally fine. We can do it, So, yeah. It was, again, it's kind of selfish to say, but I'm so thankful to be involved in that at that time. It's something that was so educational for me, and I'm thankful that I was able to go through that entire process, because I learned so much, and now I can use that knowledge again in the future and be able to really work through anything, right? Like I feel so, this year, 2021, I'm like, bring it on, 2021. Like, let's see what you got, we made it through 2020, so we're going to continue. Yeah.
What were some of your biggest takeaways from the harvest, from the smoke, decisions you had to make, and the kind of the data you gained? What were some of the biggest takeaways for you?
Yeah, well, to be honest, well, first of all, when we did go through that, I learned that I was like, oh, I don't know anything about this, So it was a lot of, Jason and I being like, learn everything you can about this, like let's get the knowledge, get it quickly. And just coming together as a team and making the best decision for every single block. It wasn't about just, and it was, it's the chaos around you, right? But you have to hone in, and you have to work as a team and be like, okay, this block is this block is this, and really make the best possible decision on a block by block basis, which is, I think, we really succeeded in. I think that we did such a good job, and we had the tools that we could utilize in order to, make that decision in a split second, and just, no holds barred, just go for it, and so I think that really helped us a lot in the entire harvest. And, I love the collaboration between, winemaking and Vineyard. It's like, we're talking so much, multiple times a day, just really, really collaborating together and making sure that each of us are on the same page, and that we all, agree. And or if somebody learns something like that day, they'd be like, oh, guess what? I learned this, and so it was kind of like we're all working together. And it's just really, really cool to see a very large team too. There's several of us involved, and just to see everyone really work together on that was really cool.
So tell me let's talk about the future a little bit. Tell me about the future for yourself. What do you see as you look ahead for yourself?
I keep learning. I'm actually, I always think, I'm like, gosh, I've been here for, 5 years. That's a long time, like as long as I've been in a job, And so, but I think, just advancing, learning. I think that, you know, the mindset that I would like to keep is, you know, just to continue to expand my knowledge, to continue to use that knowledge to educate others, and just advance my career in that way. I think that I'm in a great spot right now, and I'm so thankful, and I'm so lucky that I am where I am, you know. I mean, it did take a lot of really hard work, but I also attribute some of that to, you know, some chance and, you know, I had a little bit of luck on my side, but just to not take anything for granted and just to continue on, you know. Like, I honestly have no idea where I'll be in 10 years, but I know that I'll definitely be in wine still, but I don't know what my career will look like, to be honest. I just kind of take it day by day and learn as much as I can, take every opportunity I can, and I think I'm in a great spot right now, and I'm so thankful to be where I am just so early in my career. It's just so great to, you know, just have this opportunity.
Are there things in Stoller's future that you're looking forward to or excited about? Anything you have planned here that you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, when I started at Stoller, it was just Stoller Vineyard. And now we have so many different entities, and I mean, we have so much development, and I love that aspect of it. You know, creating a new vineyard is really cool. Yeah. So I think, you know, just our expansion is so much fun. It keeps you on your toes. You know, you're never, it's not like you're never complacent. It's like you're always, you know, you never know what's going to happen next week, right? We're just keep on going, you know, and keep on planting, keep on developing, and, you know, keep on just honing in on all of these, you know, premium blocks. And, you know, I think it's really cool, and it's really fun to see where we go, you know, like, what are we going to do next? You know, it's like, I don't even know, but I'm ready to find out.
I want you to think back, if you can, to kind of your first impressions of the Oregon wine industry, and what has changed in Oregon wine for you since your kind of initial entrance into the industry. What's different about it now from then?
I think, along with, like, I didn't know anything about the Oregon wine industry first off, so I was kind of learning as I go, but I think that, you know, the Oregon wine industry is expanding. It's really getting a name for itself, and I think that the one thing that I really enjoy about Oregon is, like, it's almost like, so I grew up in a small town, so it's almost like that small town feel, like, you know everybody, and you know, you still talk to everybody, and there's no holding back. Everyone, like, I could call up anyone from, you know, a different vineyard and be like, hey, what did you do when this happened, or anything, and I think that is really, like, the epitome of Oregon wine industry, is just, you know, the small town aspect of the Oregon wine industry is very, very appealing, and it's maintained throughout. And, you know, I've been here just a short time, but a lot has happened since I've been here. You know, I feel like I got here right when it was just, you know, like, going crazy. And so it is so amazing to see everyone come together in the same room still, and just talk and, you know, freely talk to each other and help each other. It's kind of like, you're my neighbor, you know? Like, we're neighbors. We aren't, you know, we aren't two separate things, really. We all are working for the same goal, which is so cool to see that I don't know if that will ever change. It doesn't feel like it will. You know, everyone is just so inclusive, and you always hear, like, oh, I talked to so-and-so the other day, and it's like somebody that, you know, it's like, you don't just maintain in your company. We are one entity, in my opinion.
So as you look ahead, then you say you don't think that'll change. What do you see for the future of Oregon wine? What's the industry going to look like going forward? I
mean, I think the Oregon wine industry is just a force. Like, we are, trudging forward no matter what. And I think that that definitely helps, is kind of the team aspect. We're all one unit, and I think that Oregon wine is just going to continue to create a name for itself, and premium wines, putting out great product, and just continuing to expand. And we're still very in our infancy, so our wines are so amazing, but I think that they're just going to get better and better and better. It's like we continue to educate ourselves and each other, and it's like we're all being lifted together. And so I think that only time will tell, like, what these wines are going to be. Whoosh, insane.
So I'm curious if someone were to come to you, and this may have actually happened, and ask you about your thoughts on getting into the Oregon wine industry, or getting to do what you're doing. What would your words of wisdom to them be?
Network, for sure. I think that was one of the things that I learned slowly, and it's something that I really value. I did a seminar for the horticulture department at Oregon State recently, and it was basically like, my experiences, and also like, how do you get into the wine industry? Like, what's my advice, right? Which I was kind of like, well, I only know what I did, but it's use your resources, and really, like, don't hold back. Like, everyone is so nice in this industry, I swear. Like, nobody's going to turn you down. If you like ask for a job shadow, like, just even like that, it's like, don't be scared to put yourself out there. Go to events or go to tasting rooms and just meet people, and apply for that job that you don't know if you're qualified for. Like, who cares? Like, the worst thing they're going to say is no, So it's like, put your name out there. Go to, figure out these, go to meetings, go to, just get involved. And I think just you being it, you're going to be welcomed in no matter what. So it's just kind of putting that first foot forward, and asking somebody out to lunch.
So all the questions that I have for you today. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't cover here today that we should have covered?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Well, excellent. Well,
yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, for your stories and thoughts, and we'll go ahead and let you off the hook.
Yeah, thank you.